Jake Morrison sat in the cold metal chair and watched the alien faces around him. The Galactic Council chamber was huge and filled with creatures that looked nothing like humans. Some had blue skin and 4 eyes. Others were tall and thin with scales that shined in the bright lights. A few looked like giant insects with clicking sounds coming from their mouths. Jake was the only human in the room. He had been Earth's ambassador for 3 years now. He knew these aliens well. He also knew they did not like humans very much. Today felt different, though. The air was thick with tension, and Jake could feel something bad was coming. Chancellor Veltar stood up from his floating chair. He was a Zephyrian with pale blue skin and eyes that glowed like stars. His voice was deep and cold when he spoke through the translation device. Human Morrison, we have called you here today for an important matter. Your species has become a problem for the galaxy. You expand too fast. You take planets without asking. You refuse to follow our rules. Jake kept his face calm, but his hands were tight under the table. He had expected this day would come. Humans had been exploring space for only 50 years. In that time, they had built colonies on 12 worlds and were planning more. The older alien races did not like this at all. Admiral Grexenon stepped forward. He was a Korthak warrior with 4 arms and skin like black stone. His species had been fighting wars for thousands of years. When he spoke, his voice sounded like grinding metal. Your people are young and stupid. You think you can do whatever you want in our galaxy. You develop weapons that worry us. You make alliances we do not approve of. This ends now. Jake looked around the room. There were representatives from 30 different alien species here. All of them were staring at him with unfriendly eyes. He had known this moment would come eventually. Humans were growing too strong too fast for the old powers to ignore. Chancellor Veltar activated a holographic display in the center of the room. It showed the human colonies scattered across space like bright dots. Each one represented millions of human lives working to build new homes among the stars. These colonies are illegal. You built them without permission from this council. You terraform planets using technology that could be used as weapons. You train your military in ways that make other species nervous. All of this stops today. The Chancellor's glowing eyes fixed on Jake as he continued speaking. The Galactic Council hereby gives humanity 30 standard days to comply with our demands. First, you will abandon all colonies beyond your home system. Second, you will surrender all military vessels to our custody. Third, you will accept protectorate status under alien supervision. Jake felt his heart beating faster, but kept his voice steady. And if we refuse these demands? Admiral Grexenon's 4 arms moved in, what Jake knew was a threatening gesture among his people. Then we will make you comply. Your species will learn to follow the rules or face the consequences. We have done this to many young races before. Some learned quickly. Others had to be taught harder lessons. The alien called Counselor Jikta spoke next. She was from a species that looked like walking trees with faces made of bark. Her voice was like wind through leaves. Humans are not the first species to think they are special. The galaxy has an order that has worked for thousands of years. Young races must learn their place or be removed. Jake stood up slowly. Every alien eye in the room followed his movement. He had been expecting this confrontation for months. Earth's intelligence services had picked up signs that the Galactic Council was growing worried about human expansion. What they did not know was that humans had been preparing for this possibility. I understand your position. I will take your ultimatum back to Earth and present it to my government. We will give you our answer before the deadline. Chancellor. Veltar made a sound that might have been laughter. There is only one acceptable answer, Human Morrison. Your species will submit or be crushed. We have fleets that could destroy every human world in days. We have weapons your people cannot imagine. Do not mistake our mercy for weakness." Jake nodded respectfully, but inside he was thinking different thoughts. These aliens saw humans as just another young species to be bullied into submission. They had no idea what they were really dealing with. Humans had learned hard lessons throughout their history. They knew what happened to species that could not defend themselves. "I will. Make sure my government understands the seriousness of your position. May I have permission to return to Earth immediately?" Admiral Grexanon waved one of his 4 hands dismissively. "Go. Run back to your little world. Tell your leaders what happens to species that do not know their place. 30 days, human Morrison. Not 1 day more." Jake bowed slightly to show respect, then turned and walked toward the exit. Behind him, he could hear the aliens talking among themselves in their various languages. He caught words through his translation device. They were already discussing how to divide up human territories after a conquest. They were planning which human technologies to steal and which colonies to keep for themselves. As Jake reached the door, he turned back one last time. The aliens were not even looking at him anymore. They thought the matter was settled. They believed humans would either surrender or be easily defeated. Jake almost felt sorry for them. They had made the same mistake that many others had made throughout human history. They thought humans were weak because they were young. Jake walked through the corridors of the space station toward his ship. Other aliens moved out of his way, but he could feel their stares. Word was already spreading about the ultimatum. Some looked at him with pity. Others seemed excited about the coming conquest of human space. None of them looked worried about what humans might do in response. His ship was a small, diplomatic vessel with just enough room for Jake and his small crew. As they prepared for the jump to hyperspace, Jake sent a coded message ahead to Earth. The message was simple, but every human who received it would understand what it meant. The sleeping giant stirs. Jake sat back in his chair as the ship jumped into hyperspace. The stars turned into lines of light as they raced toward Earth at faster than light speed. The trip would take 2 days. In that time, Jake would prepare his report for the President and the Defense Council. He would tell them exactly what the aliens had demanded and what they threatened to do. But Jake was not worried about the ultimatum. He had spent 3 years studying these alien species. He knew their strengths and weaknesses. He knew their military capabilities and their political divisions. Most importantly, he knew that they had made a terrible mistake. They thought they were dealing with a typical young species that would panic when threatened. They expected humans to spend the next 30 days begging for mercy or preparing hopeless defenses. They had no idea that humans had been preparing for this possibility. Since the day they first left Earth, the aliens wanted to wake up the sleeping giant. Jake smiled grimly as he watched the stars flash by outside his window. They were about to get exactly what they asked for. The Imperial machine was about to wake up, and when it did, the galaxy would never be the same again. President Linda Hayes sat at the head of the long table in the secure meeting room deep under Washington. The walls were thick concrete and steel that could stop any weapon known to humanity. Today she hoped it would be enough to contain the anger that was building in this room. Jake Morrison had returned from the Galactic Council 6 hours ago. His report lay on the table in front of every person in the room. 30 days to surrender or face destruction. The aliens thought they were dealing with frightened children who would beg for mercy. Admiral Pete Collins spoke first. He was a man in his 60s with gray hair and scars on his hands from his days as a young officer. His voice was calm, but Linda could hear the steel underneath. "Madam President, the aliens have made a serious mistake. They think our expansion into space happened by accident. They believe we stumbled into faster-than-light travel without knowing what we were doing. They are wrong about everything. General Lisa Brooks nodded from across the table. She commanded the colonial marines and had fought in the border wars against space pirates. Her face was hard as stone when she spoke. Our colonies are not just settlements. Every single one was placed for strategic reasons. Every human world can defend itself and support military operations. We have been preparing for this day since we first met alien species. Director Alex Turner leaned forward in his chair. He ran the Advanced Weapons Research Division and knew secrets that could change the balance of power in the galaxy. His voice was quiet, but everyone listened carefully. The aliens know about our standard military ships and weapons. What they do not know is that we have been developing new technologies in secret. Project Cerberus has been building ships that combine human innovation with captured alien technology. We have weapons they cannot imagine. Dr. Kate Sullivan was the youngest person in the room, but also one of the most important. Her terraforming technology had turned dead rocks into garden worlds in just a few years. Now she spoke with certainty about something the aliens had missed completely. Every terraforming station we built has dual-purpose capabilities. The same equipment that creates breathable atmospheres can destroy them. The same machines that build continents can crack planets in half. We told the aliens we were gardeners. We never mentioned we were also capable of being destroyers. Linda looked around the table at these people who represented humanity's best and brightest. Military leaders who had learned lessons from thousands of years of human warfare. Scientists who could turn peaceful tools into weapons of mass destruction. Diplomats who understood that sometimes the only way to keep peace was to be ready for war. The aliens gave us 30 days. How long do we actually need? Admiral Collins smiled grimly. The Prometheus Protocol has been ready for activation for 2 years. Every human ship captain has sealed orders. Every colony administrator knows their role. Every research station can become a military base within hours. We do not need 30 days, Madam President. We need 30 minutes. Linda stood up and walked to the window that looked out over the city. Millions of people were going about their normal lives. They had no idea that their government was about to make a decision that would change the course of human history. Some of them would die in the coming war. All of them would be changed by it. The aliens expect us to spend the next month panicking or preparing defenses. What are we actually going to do? General Brooks answered without hesitation. We are going to use every day of those 30 days to position our forces for a coordinated strike across multiple star systems. When the deadline arrives, we will not be defending Earth. We will be attacking their home worlds. Director Turner activated a holographic display that showed the known galaxy. Red dots marked alien military bases and industrial centers. Blue lines showed planned human attack routes. The display looked like a spider web designed to strangle the alien civilization. The aliens think in terms of traditional warfare. Large fleets meeting in open space. Battles for territory and resources. They do not understand how humans actually fight wars. We do not seek glorious victories. We target the enemy's ability to continue fighting. Dr. Sullivan pointed to several systems on the display. These are the manufacturing centers that supply the Galactic Council's fleets. Destroy these facilities, and their ships become useless metal floating in space. They cannot repair battle damage or replace losses. Within months, their entire military becomes worthless. Linda turned back to face the room. These people were asking her to authorize the largest military operation in human history. They wanted to attack alien civilizations that had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. They were confident they could win, but the cost would be enormous. What about civilian casualties? These alien worlds have billions of innocent people who have nothing to do with their government's decisions. Jake Morrison spoke for the first time since giving his report. Madam President, I have studied these species for 3 years. Their governments control everything. Their civilians support the military actions because they benefit from the conquered territories. More importantly, they are planning to do far worse to us. Admiral Grexanon was already discussing which human colonies to destroy his examples to. Others, Admiral Collins leaned back in his chair. We have a choice to make. We can surrender and hope the aliens treat us well as slaves. We can fight a defensive war and hope our technology is good enough to protect Earth. Or we can take the war to them and make sure no alien species ever threatens humanity again. Linda knew the choice had already been made. It had been made the moment humans first looked up at the stars and decided to reach for them. Every human colony was a statement that humanity would not be contained. Every human ship was a promise that they would go wherever they chose. Every human child born among the stars was proof that no alien threat would stop them. Activate the Prometheus Protocol. Send the signal to every human commander in space. Tell them the Imperial machine is fully awake and ready to operate. The room was quiet for a moment as the weight of the decision settled on everyone present. They were about to start a war that would reshape the galaxy. Human civilization would never be the same. Neither would any other species that tried to stand in their way. Director Turner was already activating secure communication channels. Within minutes, every human military unit would receive new orders. Colony administrators would begin converting civilian facilities for military use. Research stations would start producing weapons instead of scientific instruments. Trade ships would become military transports. Dr. Sullivan was updating terraforming schedules. Her teams would halt all peaceful projects and begin preparing planet killing charges. Worlds that had taken years to make habitable could be turned into lifeless rocks in hours if necessary. General Brooks was reviewing marine deployment plans. Her soldiers would not just defend human worlds. They would attack alien command centers and capture key facilities. Ground warfare would return to a galaxy that had forgotten what it meant to fight for every meter of territory. Admiral Collins was sending activation codes to ship captains across human space. Vessels that had been disguised as exploration or merchant ships would reveal their true military capabilities. New warships that existed only in classified files would emerge. From hidden bases, Linda watched her commanders prepare for war with the efficiency that had taken humanity to the stars. Each person knew their role perfectly. Every plan had been practiced and refined. The aliens thought they were threatening a young species that would panic under pressure. Instead, they had awakened something that had been preparing for this moment. Since humans first learned to make fire and sharpen sticks, the Imperial machine was not just a military organization. It was the combined will of every human who refused to bow down to anyone. The 30-day countdown had begun. But the aliens had made a terrible mistake in giving humanity any time at all. They should have attacked immediately if they wanted. Any chance of victory. Now, it was too late. The sleeping giant was fully awake and very angry. Jake Morrison walked back into the Galactic Council chamber exactly 30 days after receiving their ultimatum. The aliens were all waiting for him with smug expressions on their strange faces. They expected to see a broken man representing a species ready to surrender. Instead, they saw someone who stood taller and spoke with quiet confidence. Veltar floated in his chair with his glowing eyes fixed on Jake. His translator device crackled as he spoke with obvious satisfaction. Human Norrison, you have returned. We assume you bring news of your species' surrender. The 30 days are complete, and we are ready to accept control of your colonies and military forces. Jake stood in the center of the chamber and looked around at all the alien representatives. Some were leaning forward, eagerly waiting to hear about humanity's defeat. Others were already discussing among themselves how to divide up human territories. None of them looked worried about what humans might have been doing during the past month. Honored representatives of the Galactic Council, I have indeed returned with my government's official response to your ultimatum. President Hayes and the Terran Defense Council have considered your demands very carefully. Admiral Grexonon's forearms moved impatiently. His species had been warriors for thousands of years, and he was eager to begin the conquest. Enough talking human. Do your people surrender, or do we destroy them? We have fleets positioned around your colonies ready to attack. Jake smiled slightly, which seemed to confuse several of the aliens. They had expected fear or desperation, but not confidence. Admiral, I want to thank you and the entire Galactic Council for clarifying the situation so completely. For too long, humans have wondered what our place should be in galactic civilization. Your ultimatum has answered that question perfectly. Counselor Jicta's bark-like face showed confusion. Her tree-like species had lived for thousands of years and prided themselves on wisdom. What do you mean, human Morrison? We offered your species a chance to survive as our subjects. That is more mercy than many young races receive. Jake reached into his jacket and pulled out a formal document sealed with the president's official mark. He held it up so all the aliens could see it clearly. This is humanity's official response to your demands. We formally reject every single requirement you have made. We will not abandon our colonies. We will not surrender our military forces. We will not accept alien supervision of any kind. The chamber erupted in angry sounds from dozens of different species. Some aliens pounded tables with whatever appendages they had. Others made threatening gestures that were supposed to frighten Jake into changing his mind. The translator devices struggled to convert all the outraged voices into understandable speech. Chancellor Veltar raised one hand, and the noise slowly died down. His glowing eyes were now bright with anger instead of smugness. Then you have chosen death for your entire species. We offered mercy, and you threw it away. Your colonies will be destroyed, and your home world will be conquered. Jake nodded respectfully, as if the Chancellor had said something perfectly reasonable. I understand your position completely. However, humanity also has some demands to make. The Galactic Council has exactly 24 hours to issue a public apology for threatening human sovereignty. You will also formally recognize our right to exist and expand wherever we choose. The silence that followed was complete. No alien in the chamber could believe what they had just heard. A representative from a young species was making demands of the most powerful organization in the Asino galaxy. It was like watching an insect threaten a giant. Admiral Grexonon stood up to his full impressive height. His black stone skin seemed to absorb light, and his forearms flexed with barely controlled violence. You dare make demands of us? Your pathetic species will be crushed within days. We have ships that could burn your worlds to ash. We have weapons that could crack planets. Jake looked directly at the Admiral without showing any fear. I have no doubt that your military forces are impressive, Admiral. However, I think you may have misunderstood something important about humanity. We are not the same species that first stumbled into space 50 years ago. Dr. Sekalon spoke from his position near the back of the chamber. He was a scientist from a species that looked like giant centipedes with multiple eyes. His voice was high and buzzing through the translator. What could your primitive people have possibly developed in such a short time? You barely understand the technology you use. Jake turned to face the scientist with the same calm expression he had worn throughout the meeting. Doctor, that is exactly the kind of thinking that has led to this situation. You assume that because we are young, we must also be stupid. You believe that because we learned faster than light travel recently, we do not understand its implications. Chancellor Veltar made the sound that passed for laughter among his species. Implications? Human Morrison, your people build colonies without permission and develop weapons without understanding their consequences. You are children playing with tools meant for adults. Jake walked slowly around the chamber, looking at each alien representative as he spoke. Honored Chancellor, let me share something that might interest you. During the past 30 days, while you waited for our surrender, humanity has been quite busy. We have positioned military forces in 17 different star systems. We have identified the key infrastructure that supports your galactic civilization. We have prepared weapons that you cannot imagine. The aliens looked at each other with expressions ranging from confusion to amusement. They could not take seriously the idea that humans posed any real threat to their ancient and powerful civilizations. Admiral, Grexonon's translator crackled with static as he laughed. 17 star systems? Human, we have fleets in over 200 systems. We have been fighting wars since before your species learned to use fire. What could you possibly do against our combined military might? Jake stopped walking and faced the Admiral directly. That is exactly what you are about to discover, Admiral. The 24 hours begin now. I suggest you use the time to consider whether your pride is worth the consequences of refusing our demands. Counselor Jekta leaned forward in her chair. Her ancient tree-like species had seen many young races make similar threats before being crushed. Human Morrison, you speak as if your species has some secret weapon that could threaten us all. What could primitives like you have developed that we should fear? Jake gathered up his formal documents and prepared to leave the chamber. Counselor, the answer to that question is quite simple. You should fear us because you made the mistake of threatening us. Throughout human history, that has always been a fatal error for those who tried it. Chancellor Valtar's glowing eyes narrowed as he watched Jake prepare to leave. Go back to your little world, Human Morrison. Spend your last day sending messages of surrender. In 25 hours, our fleets will begin destroying your colonies, one by one, until you remember your place. Jake bowed slightly to show formal respect, then turned toward the exit. Chancellor, I will indeed return to human space. However, I will not be sending surrender messages. Instead, I will be coordinating humanity's response to your refusal to apologize. As Jake reached the door, he turned back one final time. The aliens were already celebrating what they saw as their coming victory. They were discussing which human technologies to capture and which worlds to keep for themselves. They were planning the complete conquest of human civilization. None of them seemed to realize that Jake Morrison was not just delivering ultimatums. He was positioning himself as a witness to what was about to happen. When other species asked how the war began, Jake would be able to tell them exactly who was responsible. The 24-hour deadline would expire with silence from the Galactic Council. The aliens would refuse to apologize because they could not imagine that humans posed any real threat. Their pride and arrogance would prevent them from backing down even slightly. Jake walked through the corridors of the space station toward his ship. Other aliens were staring at him with mixtures of pity and amusement. They thought he was a madman who had just signed his species' death warrant. Some were already making plans to visit the ruins of human worlds after the conquest. Small diplomatic vessel launched from the station and jumped into hyperspace toward human space. As the stars became lines of light, Jake activated his secure communication system. The message he sent was brief, but every human commander would understand its meaning. The Council has refused to apologize. Execute Phase 1 in 18 hours. Jake sat back in his chair and watched the universe rush past outside his window. The aliens had been given every chance to avoid this war. They could have chosen to respect humanity's right to exist and expand. Instead, they had chosen to threaten and bully a species they thought was weak. Now they were about to learn why that had been the biggest mistake in galactic history. The Imperial machine was fully operational and ready to show the galaxy what happened when someone threatened humanity. The sleeping giant was not just awake anymore. It was angry, and it was coming for them. Captain Ryan Parker stood on the bridge of his heavy cruiser UTS Retribution as it dropped out of hyperspace in the vegan system. Around him, his crew worked at their stations with the calm efficiency that had made human warships feared throughout known space. Today, they would find out if their training was good enough for what came next. Captain, we have 17 targets on sensors. The orbital manufacturing stations are exactly where intelligence said they would be. Lieutenant Commander. Amy Davis spoke from the sensor station without looking up from her screens. Ryan nodded and activated the ship's communication system. Around him in the dark of space, 9 other human warships materialized as their stealth systems shut down. Each ship carried weapons that combined human innovation with alien technology in ways that no enemy could predict. All ships, this is Retribution. Actual. Execute Operation Sledgehammer. Remember, we are not here to fight their fleets. We are here to make sure those fleets cannot continue fighting after today. The vegan system was one of the most important industrial centers in alien space. The massive orbital stations here built and repaired warships for 3 different alien species. Destroying these facilities would cripple enemy military operations across dozens of star systems. Ryan watched his tactical display as the human ships spread out into attack formation. Each vessel carried modified terraforming charges that Dr. Kate Sullivan's teams had converted into planet crackers. The same technology that created breathable atmospheres could now destroy anything made by alien hands. Captain, enemy sensors are detecting us. Their defense platforms are powering up weapon systems. Commander Davis's voice remained calm despite the danger they all faced. Ryan smiled grimly as he gave the order that would change galactic history. All ships weapons free. Show them what happens when someone threatens humanity. The battle that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Human ships did not charge forward in massive formations like alien fleets had done for thousands of years. Instead, they moved like hunting predators, striking from multiple directions at once. The alien defense platforms had been designed to fight traditional fleet battles. They expected enemies to approach slowly and engage in long-range artillery duels. Human ships appeared suddenly from stealth, appeared struck with devastating precision and vanished before enemy weapons could target them. Lieutenant Colonel Matt Thompson's Marine assault teams were already launching from their dropships toward the largest manufacturing station. His soldiers had trained for zero-gravity combat in hostile environments. They moved through the alien facility like ghosts, eliminating resistance and placing charges on critical systems. Thompson to Retribution. Station 7 is secured. Charges are placed and ready for detonation. Alien workers have been evacuated to safe areas as ordered. Ryan felt pride in his people as he heard that report. Even in the middle of a war designed to save humanity from extinction, his soldiers remembered their duty to protect innocent lives. This was what separated humans from the alien species that saw conquest as entertainment. Commander Amy Davis looked up from her sensor station with satisfaction in her voice. Captain, all targets are marked. Enemy military response is 3 hours away at minimum. We can complete the mission and withdraw before they arrive. Ryan activated his ship's long-range communication system. Across human space, similar operations were taking place in 16 other star systems. Each strike force had specific targets that would cripple alien military capabilities without unnecessary destruction of civilian facilities. All ships prepare for simultaneous detonation. We leave nothing here that can build or repair enemy warships. Make sure the galaxy understands what happens when someone threatens human colonies. The modified terraforming charges detonated across the vegan system in a carefully coordinated sequence. Massive orbital stations that had operated for centuries dissolved into expanding clouds of metal and debris. Manufacturing facilities that could build kilometer-long battleships became useless scrap floating in space. Within 6 hours, the most important military industrial center in this region of the galaxy had been completely eliminated: the alien. Fleets that depended on these facilities for maintenance and repair would become useless metal within months as battle damage accumulated. Ryan ordered his task force to withdraw before enemy reinforcements arrived. Human ships activated their stealth systems and vanished into hyperspace, leaving behind a system full of wreckage and confused alien defenders who could not understand what had happened. Meanwhile, in the Centauri system, Commander Amy Davis led a different kind of operation. Her stealth flotilla had been tasked with beginning what military historians would later call the Ghost War. Human ships would appear, strike with precision, and disappear before enemy sensors could track them. Amy's ships were smaller and faster than traditional warships. They carried weapons designed for surgical strikes rather than massive bombardments. Her crews had trained for hit-and-run tactics that would systematically dismantle alien logistics networks across the galaxy. Commander, we have located the primary supply depot. Intelligence was correct about the shipping schedules. 17 cargo vessels loaded with military supplies. Amy studied her tactical display and smiled coldly. The aliens moved their military supplies in large, slow convoys that followed predictable routes. They had never needed to worry about enemies that could strike anywhere without warning. All ships execute Lightning Protocol. Destroy the supplies, but leave the cargo ships intact. Make sure the crews understand this is a warning about what happens when their governments threaten humanity. The attack lasted less than 10 minutes. Human ships appeared from stealth, destroyed every cargo container filled with military equipment, and vanished again before alien escorts could respond. The merchant crews were left floating in space with their empty ships and a message about human intentions. Similar operations were taking place across alien space as human forces demonstrated capabilities that no enemy had imagined possible. Human ships struck at supply depots, communication centers, and transportation hubs with surgical precision. Colonel Matt Thompson's Marine forces were conducting their own type of warfare. His soldiers did not try to capture and hold territory like traditional ground forces. Instead, they launched precision raids on alien command centers and military installations. Thompson himself led the assault on the Korthic military headquarters on their homeworld. His Marines moved through alien buildings like shadows, striking without warning and vanishing before defenders could organize resistance. All squads, this is Thompson. Primary objectives are secured. Enemy command structure has been eliminated. Withdraw to extraction points and prepare for next phase operations. The aliens had expected to fight a defensive war against desperate human forces protecting their colonies. Instead, they found themselves under attack across dozens of systems by an enemy that seemed to be everywhere at once. What terrified alien military leaders most was the realization that humans were not trying to conquer territory. They were systematically destroying the infrastructure that allowed alien civilizations to function as military powers. Admiral Grexanon sat in his command bunker deep underground on the Korthic home world. His forearms shook with rage as he read reports from across alien space. Human forces had struck at 17 different systems, simultaneously destroying military facilities with precision that seemed impossible. How can primitive humans coordinate attacks across such distances? How do their small ships carry weapons powerful enough to destroy our largest installations? His intelligence officer could only shake his head in confusion. Admiral, our experts are studying the wreckage, but human technology seems to work in ways we do not understand. They combine our own innovations with approaches that make no sense to our tactical computers. Chancellor Veltar was having similar problems on the Zephyrian homeworld. His floating palace was now surrounded by defense systems, because human Marines had somehow penetrated security that had protected his species for thousands of years. These humans fight like no species we have ever encountered. They do not seek glorious victories or territorial conquest. They simply destroy our ability to continue fighting and then disappear. The war that was supposed to last days was easy. Alien victory was instead turning into a nightmare that showed no signs of ending. Human forces struck without warning, accomplished their objectives, and vanished before anyone could respond effectively. Worse, yet each successful human operation seemed to reveal new capabilities that alien intelligence services had never detected. Ships that could become invisible weapons, that could crack planets and soldiers, who moved like ghosts through the most secure facilities in the galaxy. That the sleeping giant that alien arrogance had awakened was proving to be far more dangerous than anyone had imagined. The Imperial machine was not just fighting a war, it was systematically dismantling the foundations of alien military power across the galaxy. And this was only the beginning. 3 months after the war began, Chancellor Veltar sat in his underground bunker and listened to the sounds of human boots marching through the corridors above him. The mighty Galactic Council that had ruled dozens of species for thousands of years had fallen to the primitive humans they had tried to intimidate. The bunker door opened, and Jake Morrison walked in, followed by 2 human Marines. The man who had once sat alone in the council chamber now wore the uniform of a Terran High Commissioner. His calm confidence had not changed, but now it carried the weight of victory behind it. "Chancellor Veltar, I hope you are comfortable down here. I know this is not the meeting either of us expected to have 3 months ago." Veltar's glowing eyes were dim with defeat as he looked up at the human who had warned him this day would come. His species had ruled their region of space for 5,000 years. Now they were prisoners in their own capital city. "Human Morrison, I underestimated your species completely. We all did. How did primitives like you develop such advanced military capabilities so quickly?" Jake sat down across from the fallen alien leader and spoke in the same respectful tone he had always used. "Chancellor, we were never primitives. That was your first mistake. Humans have been fighting wars for thousands of years. We learned lessons that your species forgot because you became too comfortable with power." Above them in the former Galactic Council Chamber, President Linda Hayes was addressing representatives from dozens of alien species. Most had come to surrender formally. Others hoped to negotiate terms that would let them keep some independence. All of them now understood that humanity was the dominant power in the galaxy. Admiral Pete Collins stood beside the president as she spoke to the assembled aliens. His space fleet now controlled every major hyperspace route between star systems. No alien ship could move without human permission. No alien world could resist if humans decided to intervene. The old Galactic Council is permanently dissolved. In its place, we are establishing the Terran Galactic Federation. This new organization will be based on principles of cooperation rather than domination. The alien representatives listened carefully as the president explained the new order. Species that wished to join the Federation would be welcomed as equal partners. Those that preferred independence would be respected as long as they caused no trouble. But never again would any species be allowed to threaten human expansion or existence. Dr. Kate Sullivan was already working with scientists from friendly alien species to develop new terraforming technologies. Her teams were transforming dead worlds into garden planets and offering them freely to species that had been displaced by the war. Human generosity was proving as effective as human military might. Director Alex Turner supervised the integration of captured alien technology with human innovations. A combination was producing advances that benefited all species willing to work with humanity. Former enemies were discovering that cooperation with humans brought prosperity beyond anything they had imagined possible. General Lisa Brooks commanded. The new Federation Defense Force, which included volunteer units from dozens of different species. Aliens who had once fought against humanity now served alongside human soldiers. They had learned that humans made better allies than enemies. Captain Ryan Parker had been promoted to Admiral and now commanded the Federation's most advanced fleet. His ships patrolled the galaxy, maintaining peace and protecting trade routes. The same weapons that had crushed alien military power now assured that no species would threaten another dot in his bunker. Chancellor Veltar continued to struggle with the reality of human victory. Morris and your people destroyed our fleets and conquered our worlds in months. Military campaigns that should have taken years were completed in weeks. How is such speed possible? Jake leaned back in his chair and considered how to explain something that seemed obvious to humans, but impossible to aliens. Chancellor, your species, and all the others made the same fundamental error. You assumed that because we were young, we would fight like other young species have fought. Veltar's translator crackled with confusion. What do you mean? There are only so many ways to conduct military operations. Fleets meet in space. Armies fight for territory. Winners take control of losers. This has been the pattern for thousands of years. Jake shook his head slowly. That pattern worked when all species thought the same way about warfare. Humans learned different lessons from our history. We learned that the best way to win wars is to make them impossible for enemies to continue fighting. Above them, President. Hayes was explaining similar concepts to the assembled alien representatives. Most were beginning to understand why their mighty civilizations had fallen so quickly to the upstart humans. Your governments made the mistake of thinking that military power was just about having bigger fleets and stronger weapons. Humans understand that real military power comes from the ability to coordinate complex operations across vast distances while adapting quickly to changing situations. The Zephyrian scientist Kethvar raised one of his 4 hands to request permission to speak. He had been one of Chancellor Veltar as advisors, but was now working with human research teams. His voice carried genuine curiosity rather than hostility. President Hayes, how did your species develop such advanced coordination capabilities? Our intelligence services detected no evidence of the military network you used against us. Linda smiled at the question that many aliens had been afraid to ask. Doctor, the network you are talking about was not hidden from you. You saw it operating every day, but did not recognize what it was. Every human colony, every trade ship, every research station was part of our military system from the beginning. The alien representatives looked at each other with growing understanding. They had watched humans expand across the galaxy for 50 years. They had seen human colonies established and human ships traveling between star systems. What they had not realized was that every civilian facility could become a military asset within hours. Admiral Collins stepped forward to explain the concept that had made human victory inevitable. Every human who left Earth was a volunteer, who understood that they might need to defend human civilization someday. We did not conscript soldiers when war began. We simply activated people who were already prepared to serve. D.R. Sullivan addressed the scientific implications of human expansion patterns. Our colonies were not placed randomly or for purely economic reasons. Every human world was positioned to support military operations and provide strategic advantages. In case of war, the alien scientists were beginning to grasp the scope of human planning. What had appeared to be normal colonial expansion was actually the most sophisticated military deployment in galactic history. Humans had been preparing for this war since the day they first left their home. Planet Dot in his bunker, Chancellor Veltar was reaching the same conclusions. Morrison, your entire species was militarized from the beginning. Every human in space was a potential soldier. Every colony was a military base. Every civilian facility had dual purposes. Jake nodded with satisfaction. Now you understand, Chancellor. We were not primitives who stumbled into space by accident. We were a species that had learned hard lessons about survival, and were determined never to be caught unprepared again. The Chancellor's glowing eyes brightened slightly as he grasped the full implications. You planned this entire campaign before you ever met another intelligent species. You knew that expansion into space would eventually lead to conflict with established powers. Jake stood up and walked to the small window that looked out at the city above. Human soldiers were working alongside alien civilians to repair war damage and restore normal life. Former enemies were learning to cooperate in ways that would have seemed impossible months earlier. Chancellor humans have a saying that applies to this situation. We believe in hoping for the best while preparing for the worst. We hoped we could expand peacefully and coexist with other species. But we prepared for the possibility that someone would try to stop us. President Hayes was making similar points to the alien representatives in the chamber above. The Terran Galactic Federation is based on the principle that all species have the right to exist and develop according to their own choices. However, we will not tolerate any attempt by one species to dominate or threaten another. The former Admiral Grexanon sat in chains listening to the human president explain the new galactic order. His 4 arms were bound, but his warrior spirit remained unbroken. When given permission to speak, his voice still carried defiance. Human Hayes, your species may have won this war, but victory in battle does not create lasting peace. Other species will eventually challenge your dominance. The galaxy has seen many empires rise and fall. Linda looked directly at the defeated Korthic warrior with respect for his courage, if not his judgment. Admiral, you are correct that empires rise and fall. However, humans are not trying to build a traditional empire. We are creating something different. She gestured toward the diverse group of alien representatives who were now working with human officials to establish the new federation. This organization is not based on human domination of other species. It is based on the idea that cooperation benefits everyone more than conflict.